cobblestone streets, gas lamps, and the riverfront right at your feet. And you can step back in time without even leaving Missouri. Today, we're headed to St. Charles, Missouri. That's our virtual trip today. Welcome into Destination Heartland. I'm Sharon Chen. So, St. Charles, Missouri, just about 3.5 hours east of Kansas City. So, let's dig right in. I'm going to bring in Ryan Cooper. There he is right there. Welcome into Destination Heartland, Ryan. How are you today?
I'm very good, and welcome to you and all of your viewers to St. Charles, or at least my desk in St. Charles.
Okay, that's all right because we're going to learn all about St. Charles from you. Okay, so to begin with, for someone who's never been to St. Charles, Missouri, tell us about what to expect when they first step foot into town.
Sure. Well, a thing that people often say is that we're like walking through a Hallmark movie. We really look like a turn of the century postcard. But the thing that's great about St. Charles is it has something for everyone. We are historically charming for those who are history buffs and love learning about the past. But we're also starting to really grow into this beautiful cosmopolitan cultural center. So for those people, we're a perfect blend of the past meets the future, and gives lots of opportunity for entertainment and other things for people to do, whether they choose to visit here for a day, or as they do sometimes, visit once and then choose to move here. St. Charles really has a little something for everyone to discover.
I love that kind of the permanent decision once you step foot into town.
Indeed.
We've visited a number of riverside towns here on Destination Heartland, virtually, of course. What
Yes.
sets St. Charles aside from the other ones?
Sure. So I think when people come to St. Charles, the first thing they're going to notice is our historic Main Street district. It truly is the crown jewel of what this city has to offer. But I think we get a lot of great overflow of being so close to such a cosmopolitan hub of St. Louis
Hmm.
that it is starting to grow in such a way that is unique that, yes, we celebrate our heritage and our history of the area, but we're ever expanding. You will notice just a few blocks south of historic Main Street, we have this whole bustling district called the Streets of St. Charles, where you're going to find movie theaters and comedy clubs and brilliant restaurants. So I think that's what makes us unique, is that you can't define us as one thing. People who visited St. Charles 15 years ago, if they were to come back now, they would find it to be almost a completely different place. They would find everything they loved about it before, but it's really St. Charles is one of those places that it is maturing and getting finer with age.
Like aging like fine wine, right?
Indeed,
In,
and we have plenty of wine here too. So
I love it. Well, you touched a little bit on the history. Let's kind of dig into that a little bit more because I know that the history in St. Charles is quite rich. It dates back to Lewis and Clark expedition days.
oh, sure, absolutely. We're very proud of our history as being the place where Lewis and Clark kicked off on their Corps of Discovery expedition. So you can actually stand in the spot where they bid farewell to everyone in St. Charles and said, "We hope to see you in 2 years," and fortunately they did. But our history even goes beyond that. We were an indigenous heartland since 10,000 CE,
Hmm.
and then we had our founding with Louis Blanchette, who brought a European sentiment to the area in 1769. So 7 years before the Declaration of Independence was signed in Philadelphia, Louis Blanchette founded a settlement that became known as Les Petites Côtes. He was French Canadian, so he called the area the Little Hills. And we were a Spanish territory occupied by the French. Then we became a French territory, and then we eventually became an American territory with the Louisiana Purchase. So already there you have a very rich history,
Hmm.
but then you also have the different cultural aspects that have left their mark on the area as well. We had huge influx of German immigrants in the 1830s, and you see their influence to this day. So that's the brilliant thing about St. Charles, is it's a melting pot. And, Lewis and Clark were here for 5 days in 1804. And beyond that, we have fascinating history as well. For instance, you in Kansas City have a very rich Walt Disney history there.
Yes.
We have a Disney connection here as well. So we had a Disney movie filmed here in 1990 called Back to Hannibal. I'll admit it was no Beauty and the Beast, but we were proud that it was filmed entirely here. But if you were to go on to North Main, you would find the Grand Opera House. And in the early part of the 20th century, this is where a vaudevillian named Ukulele Ike, his real name was Cliff Edwards, he got his performing start on that stage. Now, most of your viewers will never have heard of either Cliff Edwards or Ukulele Ike, but I guarantee they've all heard his voice because he became the voice of Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio. And it's his voice that sings When You Wish Upon a Star. So if it weren't for the Grand Opera House giving him a shot many, many years ago, we may not have had the Jiminy Cricket that we know.
Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. And just, the history is so fascinating. So, what are some of the sites and locations that people can go to experience and relive that history?
Sure. Well, you have to start on historic Main Street. Lots of that history happened here. So right now, if I were to look out my window of my office, I'm staring on to the property of the first state capitol. Because St. Charles, long before Jefferson City, we had the distinction of being the state capital of Missouri for the first 5 years of statehood, because Jefferson City wasn't quite ready to host the capital. The infrastructure wasn't there. So people like to see that building. And they get to see where the legislators met and debated, and sometimes threw inkwells at each other's heads when debates got a little heated. And it's fascinating because it was on the upper floor of a 19th century hardware store. So it's frozen in time over there. People can see that. It smells like history. It looks like history. So people should start there. But then people who love the Lewis and Clark history, they need to go down to the riverfront, to the Lewis and Clark Boathouse and Museum. Now, many years ago, some wonderful volunteers actually hand-built and recreated the entire fleet that Lewis and Clark used. Now, and when we mean recreated, we mean to the T. They actually used Lewis and Clark's actual plans from the Smithsonian Institution to make sure that they were completely accurate. So you get to see those boats and know that they actually recreated the entire Lewis and Clark journey for their bicentennial, which was pretty exciting. So you go there, and then I suggest people go to the Foundry Arts Center. And the reason why is that it is a symbol of how we both honor our past and reinvent it. So the Foundry Arts Center was, when it first started, it built train cars and it built tanks during World War II. But today it's now an artist gallery. So you have various galleries that people can go in. And upstairs we have 20 different studios with working artists, mosaics, paint, fiber arts. So people can actually meet and greet the artists who are creating this wonderful thing. And it's like, we're no longer building trains there, but now we're creating art and doing wonderful events there. And it's a beautiful way that we honor our past and our present at the same time.
I love that. That is so interesting. I just saw flash up on your screen behind you. It said 13 ghostly guests. So that's my next question. What are the local legends or ghost stories that people in St. Charles like to tell?
Oh, absolutely. Well, we have enough that we actually have a walking tour dedicated to it called Macabre Main Street that takes place after the sun goes down. But it's very fascinating. People come to Main Street and it's so quaint and beautiful, and they don't realize that just behind that architecture are oftentimes some darker stories that maybe don't make it into the guidebook. So, for instance, our old post office, what is now their parking lot, used to be an infamous prison known as Dante's Hell. And it was there that 10 criminals over time were executed, many of them publicly, right here on our beautiful Main Street. So you have that. We have next to Grandma's Cookies, which is a famous institution, is a
Uh-huh.
beautiful plot of grassland. And people don't realize that that was actually St. Charles's first cemetery. Now,
Oh,
many of the bodies were moved in the early 1800s, but it's estimated that there are still about 50 bodies still interred below. And I can
oh,
tell you, I've seen them with my own eyes. Sometimes when they do archaeological digs or utility work, they will find bones, and in some cases they will find fully intact bodies still
oh.
there. So that's a little wild. But then we have various places that have famous ghosts. We have the Main House restaurant, formerly known as the Mother-in-Law House. Many people are afraid of their mother-in-laws, but we actually have the ghost of a mother-in-law named Catherine Becker, who haunts that restaurant. And then there's an area called the Farmer's Home, which was a tavern that all the early legislators stayed at. But it is the most haunted location in all of St. Charles. It has 7 distinct spirits within one building, everyone from the spirit of a crying baby, to the spirit of a Frenchman who likes to steal cigarettes, which sounds like a bit of a spiritual stereotype to me. And then they have some not so friendly poltergeists in that building as well, including
Uh-huh.
ghosts who like to push women down the stairs,
Oh,
and ones that are in the cellar that always freak out dogs that pass by the cellar door. So, lots of spooky history. We all know Edgar Allan Poe. He actually
yep.
wrote a book that no one wrote, that no one read, called The Journal of Julius Rodman, which is a fictionalized account of the Lewis and Clark story. But he actually mentions our city, and he mentions a particular house that is still standing in that story. So it may not be the Raven, but we're very honored
Uh-huh.
at the fact that Edgar Allan Poe wrote a story that talks about us a lot.
That is truly fascinating. All these things that we're talking about, I'm riveted. I'm like on the edge of my seat going, wow. Let's talk about attractions. We already talked about some big attractions in town, but what
Yes.
are some of the other ones that people need to put on their must-do list when they come to town?
Sure. So we are very famous here in St. Charles for our holiday festivals. So you'll see lots of
Mm.
those flashing on the screen behind me. Our biggest ones are our Halloween festival, Legends and Lanterns, which has been going on for 10 years. We have our Christmas festival called appropriately St. Charles Christmas Traditions, that is going to be celebrating its 52nd season this upcoming year. And then we have the new kid on the block. It's our Once Upon a Valentine festival. So, what we're proud about those events, and those events collectively draw about 250,000 people from all
Wow.
around the country to our historic Main Street every single year, which we're very proud of. And the reason being, these are historically based events that are family friendly but not childish. So at all these events, you'll find famous characters from history, literature, and folklore. So, for instance, at Legends and Lanterns, you'll meet Ichabod Crane from Sleepy
Oh,
Hollow, and you'll meet the Queen of Hearts and the Big Bad Wolf and Medusa, and the Brothers Grimm will all be here, and Lizzie Borden, because she's fun to have at a party. So you get to meet and interact with them. But then we have special attractions. So for people who love history and learning, we're all about edutainment, having fun while you learn. So we have a Victorian morning exhibit. We have mini museums about gargoyles or poisonous and carnivorous plants. We have
mhm.
cultural outreach. We have a Plaza del Dia de los Muertos, which is all about the Mexican Day of the Dead. So people can enjoy that. Christmas traditions, we have Santas from around the world. We have Jack Frost, the Sugar Plum Fairy. We have Ebenezer Scrooge. We have a whole night dedicated to actually walking through and living Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And then we have Once Upon a Valentine, realizing that people have strong feelings for Valentine's Day,
Uh-huh.
one way or the other. We have an event that is half pro Valentine and half anti Valentine. So you'll get to meet
Interesting.
Cupid and Casanova and Romeo and Juliet, but then you'll meet the Six Wives of Henry VIII. Then you'll meet some St. Valentine's Day massacre gangsters and Miss Havisham, the jilted bride from Charles Dickens' Great Expectations. So it's a lot of fun. People learn things. And the best thing of all is that all of our events are 100% free. We don't want anyone to have an economic barrier to be able to come here, explore our
Mhm.
destination, and have fun. And you'll see people who come to these every year. It becomes their tradition, and you'll often see them multiple times a year. And it truly, words cannot describe how incredible these large scale festivals are. They are very large scale, but they feel very custom, very unique, very small town, warm and charming.
Uh-huh.
And that is, those are attractions that are absolute must do's for anyone, whether you've been to St. Charles before or whether you're planning your first visit.
That is amazing. There just is so much interesting things to dig into in St. Charles, and man, we're just getting started here. But what we want to do real quick, Ryan, is take a quick break, and then we're going to be
Sure.
back with more in St. Charles for Destination Heartland. So stay with us. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Destination Heartland. Today we are having so much fun exploring virtually, of course, St. Charles, Missouri. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring back in Ryan Cooper. He's with the St. Charles Visitors and Conventions Bureau. I think I switched that around. Should be Convention and Visitors Bureau, right, Ryan?
That works. We
That
cover it all no
works.
matter what order it comes in.
Okay. Well, we have talked about so many interesting things to do and see in St. Charles, but now let's talk a little bit about the art scene because I know you already talked about the Foundry Art Museum. Is that right? What other kind of art aspects can people dig into in St. Charles?
Sure. Well, the great thing is, so for visual artists, the Foundry is really our mecca in town, and that has really blossomed over the past half decade. They have such fun events. For instance, our yearly block party, where we have artists carve giant wood carvings. We put ink on them and a piece of fabric over them, and then steamrollers actually run over them to create these huge, larger than life block prints. And that's something that's unique to our area that just started a few years ago and has been so huge. But our mission here in St. Charles is to make art accessible. Sometimes people can
Mm-hmm.
be scared, they think, "Oh, I don't have the mental capacity to really, process what I'm seeing." But we've done everything from exhibits about the art of pinball machines. We had an exhibit a few years ago called WAG that was dedicated to art of the dog.
Oh,
So not only was it art about dogs, but it was done in colors that dogs can see.
uh huh.
It was hung at levels that dogs can see and enjoy. We had tennis balls in the gallery, so if you brought your furry friend, uh, they could have a little bit of fun as well. So we do everything very seriously, but also tongue in cheek as well. We want it to be accessible and friendly to those who are new to the art scene. So you have the visual arts of the Foundry Arts Center. You have theatrical arts that are here with our holiday festivals that we mentioned. We have some of the best talented storytellers and actors from around the St. Louis area who participate in that. And then you have, if you go a little beyond our general St. Charles City, we also encompass Missouri wine country. And every year
Oh.
they do a wonderful plein air festival, which means open air. So you can go there and actually see all these brilliant watercolor artists and oil painters set up all throughout the towns of Defiance and Augusta, and just watch them do these incredible paintings before your eyes of the incredible rolling hills of vineyards. So it's, St. Charles may not come front of mind to people when they think the arts, but
Mm-hmm.
it should. And mark my words, in a few years, we're going to be top of everyone's list when they think of where do we go for art? We come to St. Charles.
I can see that. I mean, you guys have so much in that department for sure. Well, along with the art and the wine, well, now let's get into dining. So, kind of set up the dining scene in St. Charles there for us. And I imagine that we've got a lot to talk about here.
Oh, sure. Well, the great thing that you'll find right away when you come to the city is you're not going to find a lot of chain restaurants.
Uh
And
huh.
there's nothing against chain restaurants, they're wonderful. But St. Charles has really made their, no pun intended, bread and butter on mom and pop restaurants. So you are going to find an incredible number of coffee shops. You're going to find an incredible number of bistros and cafes. And for every budget, you're going to have everything from, quick service, run in and grab something, to fine dining sit down establishments with fine linens and candles.
Hmm.
So that is something that people don't realize how rich of a culinary scene we have. And in fact, our office a few years ago, spearheaded by our assistant director, Elizabeth Phelps, realized what a rich culinary area we have, that we actually developed a dining guide called Bite Size,
Uh-huh.
so that people can explore what we have to offer. So every year or two, we put out a new version of this magazine that allows people to connect with the food and beverage scene in a unique way. So, for instance, this most recent edition we put out has a cocktail trail that's based around your zodiac. So if you're a Scorpio like me, you can
Uh-huh.
look in that trail and say, okay, what beverage best fits my personality? And the great thing is that we have such a wide diversity of dining options that you have everything for every taste bud.
And just like you said at the top, something for everyone. I always ask this too. Does St. Charles have that St. Charles specialty, or just that one item that when people go there, they're like, oh, I gotta get this because I'm here in St. Charles?
Yes, and fortunately for me,
Uh huh.
as someone who has an enormous sweet tooth,
Oh, me
we are
too.
very well known for our sweets, particularly our
Mm.
cookies. We have a
Oh,
location on Main Street called Grandma's Cookies on the 400 block across the street from our iconic gazebo. And it has been around since the 70s.
mm-hmm.
And you will not believe the line around the block to get in this place. Particularly, they are famous for their chocolate chip cookies, which is a
Oh,
chocolate chip cookie with an ice cream scoop of chocolate chip cookie dough on top that is also baked. So you
wow.
have this huge gooey center to the cookie as well. And they are so well known. They have won the USA Today Best Cookie in America at least 3 times in a row, I
Oh,
believe, and it is
wow.
very well deserved. So you will find people who've never been to St. Charles before come in from California, and the first thing they ask our front desk staff is, "Where's this cookie I need to get?"
Where's Grandma's cookies? I mean,
Yes.
you had me at sweet tooth, and then now you got me really hooked in with Grandma's cookies. Another question I always ask is, other than Grandma's cookies, what is that one spot when your friends come to town or people come to town that you say, "Oh, you've got to go to this place"?
Ooh, that's a great question. So one place that I often take my friends to is a bistro and cafe called Magpies.
Hmm.
It has a beautiful patio because outdoor dining is everything. Historic Main Street feels very European
Hmm.
in many ways. So outdoor dining is, you'll find that all throughout Paris. So maybe we're getting connected with our French heritage that way. But when the weather is nice here in St. Charles, there's nothing like a good patio on Main Street that
Oh,
makes your
yeah.
meal taste 10 times better. So Magpies has a beautiful patio that overlooks the street. And if you get it right at the right angle, you get a little bit of the Missouri River as well. But they specialize, they don't have a huge menu, but they
Hmm.
specialize in quiche and
Oh.
these artisanal sandwiches. So it's very simple ingredients, but to sound very hokey, I think the main ingredient of a lot of the mom and pop restaurants on Main Street is love, and you can tell that these are
Mm.
recipes that have been passed on uh, for decades in these establishments, and they've stuck around for so long because as simple as they are delicious, and they taste like the area, if that makes sense. It feels kind of old world. It feels very comforting and charming. And so that's where I take my friends. But truly, you walk the 10 blocks of historic Main Street, you have everything from ceviche to Creole barbecue. We have French crepes. We even have a vegan French restaurant for those who are vegan. So, we are really expanding our minds of what food is in this area.
Oh, and You know what you said about love there. I absolutely love that because you always say cook with love. And so that is the perfect example of that. Going from our dining scene to our shopping scene. So visitors come and dine. Well, they got to shop too. So set that up for us too.
Absolutely. I mean, you will want for nothing, and if you have that hard to shop for person who has a birthday, or you have Christmas coming up that you need to shop for someone for a stocking stuffer, historic Main Street is that. We have nearly 100 different boutiques, and the great thing is so many of our shops specialize in their own unique thing. So, for instance, we have the Old Town Spice Shop that has everything you need culinary wise. Then we
Mm-hmm.
have Provenance Soap Works that has bath bombs and handmade soaps and body scrubs and shaving needs. Might need one of those. Uh, but that's the great thing. We have clothing shops. We have shops that cater to kids and toys. We have a shop that's called All About Animals. So if you
Oh,
have anyone who loves animals in your life, they have clothing, they have home decor that's all about our favorite furry friends. And that's the great thing that we have a beautiful bookstore, Main Street Books, that is iconic. So every block you go in, there's something new that even if you're not buying something, you are just called to cross the threshold and window shop because it's so unique and it's such a refreshing change from shopping online
mm-hmm.
or going to a mall or going into a big box store where everything is so curated by corporate, which has its place and is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But here, knowing that these are small business owners that have set up that display themselves, they have created these items themselves in many cases, just makes it feel all the more special and unique. And the fact that you're shopping in buildings that in some cases are 150 or 200 years old
Yeah.
just adds to the charm factor of it as well.
Yeah, and I that's exactly what I was going to bring up too was that you have a historic downtown and just that walkability and all these unique shops. I mean, that in itself is such a neat experience. I always ask this too, and it sounds like there's so much going on all the time in St. Charles, but what is the best time to come and visit?
You know, we used to have an off season, but I will say we're starting to find that people are noticing that there is something unique uh, no matter what time of year you're visiting. So it all depends on what really gets you as a viewer and a visitor excited. If you're excited to really throw yourself into local culture,
Hmm.
come in fall or winter to experience legends and lanterns or Christmas traditions. If you're someone who wants to be able to take a leisurely pace and explore the area, come in February or March before, people are on spring break or on summer vacation. If you like to kind of explore things without, the crowds that come in spring and summer, that's a great option as well. Because the wonderful thing is, St. Charles doesn't close down at any time of year. It's not a point where, back in the old days, lots of people took vacations in January, so lots of shops were closed. That's not the case anymore. We are open for business and our attractions operate year round. So truly, it's up to you. We get a little warm, as you know, in Missouri in the
Yeah.
summer, but
Uh-huh.
we have beautiful fall, we have beautiful spring, and any time is a wonderful time for us to welcome you. And we hope you'll stop by the tourism center on South Main Street, and we'll help get you all set up with everything you want to see.
I truly love this virtual trip that we took today to St. Charles. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us for this episode of Destination Heartland.
Well, it was an honor joining you. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to seeing you in person here on our brick streets soon.
I will get there for sure.